Zhang Youxia once said at the 10th Beijing Shengshan Forum, the One China principle is a broad consensus of the international community. No matter who attempts, in whatever form, to split Taiwan away from China, China absolutely will not agree, and the Chinese military will absolutely not agree either, and will show no mercy. From the very day authoritarian regimes in Chinese history were born, they have been studying one core question: how to prevent the regime from being overthrown. This kind of defense is divided into three directions. One is against foreign invaders, which is why they built many great walls. One is against the internally ruled classes, mainly the vast number of peasants, and one is against threats from within the power elite itself. Among these, the third type of threat mainly relies on limited violence and various interest transactions, power games, and is generally referred to as a palace coup. Historically, there have been roughly a dozen successful palace coups, with the Tang dynasty and the Qing dynasty having the most, about 3 or 4 each. A successful palace coup generally requires control of the dominant defensive forces in the capital, the correct coup strategy, a broad alliance within the ruling class, and the ability to effectively control the supreme ruler. Today, we are going to talk about what factors are required to launch a coup within the CCP's power structure. Does Zhang Youxia have the capability to launch a coup? After 1949, Mao Zedong rebuilt the CCP's power structure. What he worried about most was that this group of old comrades under him might threaten his power. Under the power structure he created to launch a palace coup, one must quickly seize control of the Central Guard Bureau and the Beijing Garrison Command, the latter being under the leadership of the Central Military Commission. These two institutions are the most important military forces in Beijing. The Central Guard Bureau is responsible for protecting Politburo Standing Committee level leaders and has under it the Central Guard Division, namely the 8,341 unit. The Beijing Garrison Command is responsible for defending the capital and has roughly the strength of 3 divisions. After the coup, it is necessary to quickly control central media such as the People's Daily and China National Radio, which hold the official discourse power. Then one must quickly convene a Politburo meeting to secure legal legitimacy for the coup and replace key positions with one's own people. Mao Zedong always held these departments firmly in his hands. Before launching the Cultural Revolution, he first used the wiretapping incident as a pretext to remove Yang Shangkun, the director of the General Office who was close to Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping, and allowed Wang Dongxing to concurrently serve as director of the General Office and director of the Central Guard Bureau, thereby controlling the core of the system. He also tacitly allowed Lin Biao to bring down He Long and Luo Ruiqing, who were in charge of the military commission's daily work and were leaning toward Liu and Deng, thereby consolidating control over the military. Next, he labelled Fu Chongbi, the commander of the Beijing Garrison Command, as a member of a counter-revolutionary clique, thus taking control of the Beijing Garrison Command. Only after everything was prepared did Mao dare to launch the Cultural Revolution. Mao always firmly controlled the Central Guard Bureau and the Beijing Garrison Command. Even when a new soldier joined the Central Guard Bureau, Mao would personally meet him. The so-called coup launched by Lin Liguo could only ever be a joke and had no possibility of success from the very beginning. After the Cultural Revolution, there were 2 successful palace coups. One was the Huarentang incident that crushed the Gang of Four, and the other was the incident that led to Hua Guofeng's removal from power. By carefully dissecting these 2 events, we can see the key points of launching a palace coup within the CCP's power structure. After Mao Zedong's death, the CCP political arena was left with the Gang of Four, the old cadres, and a third force consisting of Ji Dengkui, Wang Dongxing, Chen Zilian, Wu De, and others. Under the leadership of Hua Guofeng and Ye Jianying, the old cadres and the third force moved toward cooperation and formed a temporary pro-Hua faction. Because they feared that they would not have enough seats at a Politburo meeting to win a legal struggle, they chose the method of armed arrest. At this point, both the Central Guard Regiment and the Beijing Garrison Command were crucial, and neither could be missing. The Beijing Military Region and the Central Military Commission were also very important as follow-up stabilizing forces. At that time, Wang Dongxing controlled the Central Guard Bureau and its subordinate Central Guard Regiment. On the Beijing Garrison Command side, Wu Zhong served as commander, and Wu De, the first secretary of the Beijing Municipal Party Committee, concurrently served as political commissar. Among these people, only Wu Zhong had not clearly stated his position. In order to test Wu Zhong's attitude, Navy political commissar Su Zhenhua, acting under Ye Jianying's instructions, arranged to meet his former subordinate Wu Zhong alone under the pretext of visiting the Miyun Reservoir in order to understand Wu Zhong's stance and attitude. After hearing Wu to mention Wu Zhong, Hua Guofeng casually asked Wu De a question without revealing his intentions. Do you think Comrade Wu Zhong is reliable? Wu De knew Wu Zhong very well and immediately gave Hua Guofeng his assurance. Hua Guofeng then added another sentence. Besides Wu Zhong, you also need to find one more person mobilizing the garrison troops, requires going through Chen Zilian. At that time, Chen Zilian was the commander of the Beijing military region and was also responsible for presiding over the daily work of the Central Military Commission. The garrison troops were organizationally subordinate to the Beijing military region, so Chen Zilian was Wu Zhong's direct superior. More importantly, mobilizing troops stationed in Beijing, even just a single company, required approval from the Central Military Commission in order to conform to procedure. Chen Zilian had already made his position clear to Hua Guofeng and Ye Jianying long ago. With this, they completed all the pieces of the puzzle before the coup. The process of controlling the Gang of Four was extremely simple and rapid. The arrest operations inside Zhongnanhai were mainly carried out by dozens of soldiers from the Central Guard Regiment led by Zhang Youxia. The arrest operations outside Zhongnanhai were commanded by Wu De and executed by the Beijing Garrison Command troops. Hua Guofeng directed Geng Biao to lead the Beijing Garrison Command troops to quickly take control of Xinhua News Agency, the People's Daily, China National Radio, Red Flag Magazine, and other news organizations, thereby seizing back control over propaganda and public opinion. These places were the Gang of Four's main strongholds. That evening, the Central Politburo convened a meeting to announce the relevant situation and elected Hua Guofeng as chairman of the CCP Central Committee and chairman of the Central Military Commission. Next, the Central Politburo held a briefing meeting in Beijing for Central Party organs, political and military institutions, and provincial and municipal leaders. 12 days later, the Central Committee notified party organisations at all levels of the arrest of the Gang of Four and conveyed the news to the people nationwide. Only then did this coup officially come to an end. It should be noted that Hua Guofeng was able to mobilise these armed forces because he himself was Mao Zedong's designated successor and the person in charge of the party centre at the time. Without this title, it would not have been so easy for him to mobilise the military. Ye Jianying alone would not have been able to launch a coup. In other words, only when the party boss holds the gun can a coup be launched. Merely holding the gun is not enough. The hurriedly formed alliance led by Hua Guofeng lacked the ability to independently control a complex and ever-changing political situation. As a result, it had to share power with the old cadres who had been sidelined during the Cultural Revolution. Deng Xiaoping was thus able to return to the political stage and became the third-ranking figure within the CCP. With the large-scale return of the old cadres, Deng Xiaoping's power was greatly enhanced, and he gained more and more supporters within the party. The contradictions between them and Hua Guofeng's whateverist faction became increasingly prominent. At this point, the two sides had already reached a balance of power within the party, which became the foundation for all of Deng Xiaoping's subsequent arrangements. However, at this time, Hua Guofeng's influence within the military still exceeded that of Deng Xiaoping. Wang Dongxing still controlled the Central Guard Bureau, Chen Zilian was still the commander of the Beijing military region, and Wu Zhong was still the commander of the Beijing Garrison Command. Hua Guofeng served as chairman of the Central Military Commission, with Ye Jianying presiding over its daily work. If he made up his mind, Hua Guofeng could still launch a second Huarentang-style coup at any time and have Deng Xiaoping arrested. This was also the reason why Deng Xiaoping did not dare to rashly launch a general offensive against Hua Guofeng. As a shrewd politician, Deng Xiaoping understood the key to a coup and began to accumulate strength. The first target was the Central Military Commission. After his return, Deng Xiaoping served as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission and chief of the General Staff effectively making him the third-ranking figure in the military. Because Ye Jianying was advanced in age and lacking in energy, Deng gained substantial influence over the military's daily affairs. He proposed adding Liu Bocheng, Nie Rongzhen, and Xu Shangqian, the three surviving marshals, as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. Due to the prestige of these three marshals, Hua Guofeng could only agree. Because of Deng Xiaoping's deep personal ties with these marshals, they were natural allies. As a result, within the 6-member chairmanship group of the Central Military Commission, Deng Xiaoping now held 4 votes. Deng Xiaoping also chose Luo Ruiqing as Secretary General of the Central Military Commission to preside over its daily operations. Why activate Luo Ruiqing? Because after the founding of the PRC, Luo Ruiqing had long served as Mao Zedong's chief secretary and had always been Wang Dongxing's superior, exerting a kind of bloodline-level authority over Wang. Wang Dongxing was extremely dissatisfied with this appointment and consistently refused to agree. Deng Xiaoping then said Luo could serve as director of the General Political Department, but Wang still refused. In the end, Deng Xiaoping slammed the table and said, "Let him be Secretary General of the Military Commission. Whether you agree or not, it will be done." Deng Xiaoping once said, "If China one day changes its colour, becomes a superpower, dominates the world, bullies others everywhere, invades others, and exploits others, then the people of the world should expose it, oppose it, and together with the Chinese people, overthrow it." In February 1979, Deng Xiaoping strongly advocated launching the war against Vietnam. One reason was to present a pledge of loyalty to the United States. The other was to strengthen his control over the military. In this process, Deng Xiaoping continuously struck deals with Ye Jianying, causing Ye to gradually relinquish his influence within the military. Starting in 1980, Deng Xiaoping's trusted subordinate Yang Deji served as chief of the general staff. In July 1981, Deng's supporter Yang Shangkun became Secretary General of the Central Military Commission, allowing Deng Xiaoping to firmly take control of the military commission. At the level of the Central Guard Bureau, Deng Xiaoping first had Luo Ruiqing transfer the Central Guard Regiment's affiliation from the General Office to the Central Military Commission, incorporating it into the General Staff Department's Guard Bureau. This effectively severed it from Wang Dongxing. Next, Deng Xiaoping brought back Yang Dezong, Zhou Enlai's former chief bodyguard, and appointed him Director of the General Office Guard Bureau and concurrently Commander of the Central Guard Division. Yang Dezong had served as Political Commissar of the Central Guard Regiment since 1953, and from 1965 onward also concurrently served as Deputy Director of the Guard Bureau. His seniority within the Guard Bureau was even greater than that of Wang Dongxing, and he was very familiar with the Guard Bureau's operations. In this way, Deng Xiaoping completely seized leadership over the Central Guard Bureau, removing a major obstacle to overthrowing Hua Guofeng. Deng Xiaoping no longer had to worry about Hua Guofeng launching a second Huirentang-style military coup, removing the sword of Damocles hanging over his head and allowing him to finally breathe a sigh of relief, no longer living in daily fear of being arrested. At the level of the Beijing Garrison Command, in September 1977, Deng Xiaoping appointed the highly senior Fu Chongbi to return and replace Wu Zhong as commander of the garrison. Fu Chongbi was a member of Deng Xiaoping's ally Ni Rongzhen's camp and had previously served as commander of the Beijing Garrison Command in the 1962nd. His seniority and experience left opponents with no grounds to challenge this appointment. In February 1979, Deng Xiaoping further appointed his old subordinate from the Jin Jiluyu base area, Pan Yan, as commander of the Beijing Garrison Command, thereby completely controlling the garrison. As for the Beijing military region, Chen Jilian had originally been Deng Xiaoping's old subordinate. After the Cultural Revolution, he had even gone to Deng Xiaoping's home to admit fault and repent. Deng Xiaoping first arranged for his loyalist Qin Jiwei to serve as first political commissar, and in 1980 arranged for Qin Jiwei to replace Chen Jilian as commander of the Beijing military region. After completing the military preparations, Deng Xiaoping gradually launched his offensive against Hua Guofeng. At the 5th plenary session of the 11th Central Committee held in February 1980, the resignations of Wang Dongxing, Ji Dengqi, Wu De and Chen Jilian were accepted, stripping Hua Guofeng of his most important allies and reducing him to a commander without troops. The meeting additionally elevated Hu Yaobang and Zhao Ziyang to the Politburo Standing Committee. The plenum restored the Central Secretariat, with Hu Yaobang recommended by Deng Xiaoping to serve as General Secretary, responsible for handling the party centre's daily affairs, thereby stripping Hua Guofeng of his authority over daily operations. Soon afterward, Zhao Ziyang replaced Hua Guofeng as Premier of the State Council, further depriving Hua of part of his power. In the following months, the Central Secretariat and central media intensively released messages aimed at dismantling personality cults. Starting in November 1980, the Central Politburo held 9 consecutive meetings specifically to discuss the Hua Guofeng issue. At the 6th plenary session of the 11th Central Committee, Hua Guofeng resigned from all leadership positions and formally exited the historical stage. Deng Xiaoping officially became the core of the second-generation leadership. In the first few years after Jiang Zemin came to power, the Central Guard Bureau, the Beijing Garrison Command, the Beijing Military Region, and the Central Military Commission were still under Deng Xiaoping's control. The Yang Shangkun Yang Beibing brothers controlled the military's daily operations, aggressively escorting Deng Xiaoping's authority, while Yang Dezhong continued to firmly hold the Central Guard Bureau. Therefore, although Jiang Zemin concurrently held the positions of General Secretary of the party and Chairman of the Central Military Commission, he remained extremely anxious, fearing that Deng Xiaoping might remove him at any time. Fortunately for Jiang Zemin, he quickly seized upon the mistakes committed by the Yang brothers. From their rash statements regarding June 4th to the privately drafted promotion lists, Zheng Qinghong successfully drove a wedge between Deng Xiaoping and Yang Shangkun through Deng Pufeng. The Yang brothers' power triggered Deng Xiaoping's vigilance. As a result, at the 14th Party Congress, Deng Xiaoping expelled them from the military and the core of power, replacing their military representatives with Liu Huaqing and Zhang Zhen, and assigning his own secretary, Wang Ruilin, to oversee military personnel affairs. Wang Ruilin recommended his fellow townsmen Shi Haotian and Zhang Wenian to serve as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. Only after Deng Xiaoping's health completely deteriorated did Jiang Zemin slowly begin to gain control over senior military officers, eventually firmly grasping military power. During the period when Yang Dezhong was fully responsible for Zhongnanhai security, the CCP leadership successively experienced 4 bloodless palace coups. The removal of Hua Guofeng, the abandonment of Hu Yaobang, the removal of Zhao Ziyang, and the downfall of the Yang family. In order to persuade Yang Dezhong to willingly hand over the Guard Bureau, Jiang Zemin first granted him ministerial-level administrative treatment, enjoying deputy military region-level benefits, and later allowed Yang Dezhong, at the advanced age of 71, to be promoted to the rank of full general with full military region-level income. Starting in 1995, the special assistant responsible for Jiang Zemin's personal security was replaced by Yu Zigui, while Yang Dezhong continued to serve as first deputy director of the General Office, still overseeing guard work. In 1998, the 75-year-old Yang Dezhong retired. The General Office system held a grand celebration ceremony for him, celebrating his successful completion of duty and honourable retirement. Only then did Jiang Zemin fully take control of the Central Guard Bureau. This was a strategy akin to a buyout. At the same time, Old Jiang closely cooperated with local power brokers in Beijing, such as Li Peng, forged alliances with various political families through Zheng Qinghong, forced Cao Shi into retreat, persuaded Li Ruihuan to step down, struck at Li Huaqing and others through the Yuan Hua smuggling case, and intimidated the nationwide officialdom through the Chen Shitong case and the Chen Keji case. He continuously promoted his own people to occupy core positions, pushing his power within the CCP to its peak. At the 16th Party Congress, although Hu Jintao was elected General Secretary, Jiang Zemin's people still held the majority in both the Politburo Standing Committee and the Politburo. The Central Guard Bureau was firmly in Jiang's hands, with Yu Zigui serving as director. The director of the General Office was Wang Gang, Jiang's man, and both the Central Military Commission and the Beijing Garrison Command were also controlled by Jiang's people. At the 17th Party Congress, the director of the General Office, was replaced by Ling Jihua, and the Central Guard Bureau came under Hu Jintao's subordinate Cao Qing. However, the Central Military Commission and the Beijing Garrison Command were still controlled by Jiang's people. Ling Jihua quickly gained control of the Central Guard Bureau through Cao Qing. After the fatal car crash at Bay of Fusi Bridge in 2012, Ling Jihua immediately dispatched personnel from the Central Guard Bureau to seal off the scene. This incident later triggered alarm among Jiang Zemin's camp. They could not help but wonder, if Ling Jihua could make the Central Guard Bureau handle his private affairs, could he not also use it to threaten their personal freedom? As a result, Ling Jihua was quickly transferred away from the core power center, and Li Jianshu, acceptable to Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, and Xi Jinping alike, became the new director of the General Office. At the 18th Party Congress, Hu Jintao retired completely, and Jiang Zemin, as the real power broker, arranged most of the personnel appointments. Although Xi Jinping became a Trinity leader, aside from Li Jianshu as director of the General Office being considered his own man, Xi did not have deep control over the core. The director of the Central Guard Bureau was still Cao Qing, and Ling Jihua could still remotely control many people within the General Office. The Central Military Commission and the Beijing Garrison Command were also not Xi Jinping's people. Although Cao Qing was very cooperative in his work, Xi Jinping still could not trust him. Out of concern for his personal safety, after taking office, Xi Jinping immediately replaced all of his close personal bodyguards with soldiers from field army backgrounds directly under Li Jianshu's leadership. After Ling Jihua fell in 2014, Xi Jinping used the scandal involving Central Guard Bureau soldiers participating in ivory smuggling as a pretext to transfer Cao Qing to serve as deputy commander of the Beijing military region, and transferred Hu Jintao's former Guard Bureau deputy director Wang Qing to serve as vice president of the Information Engineering University. Wang Qing was Ling Jihua's die-hard ally and had once assisted Ling in monitoring Xi Jinping and other standing committee members. Xi Jinping also arranged for Li Jianshu to serve as first political commissar of the Central Guard Bureau, and appointed Wang Xiaojun, who was responsible for Xi's personal security, as director of the Guard Bureau. In this way, he gained control of the Central Guard Bureau and resolved his own security problem. Later, as Wang Xiaojun's health deteriorated, Xi Jinping broke the old rule that Guard Bureau directors were generally promoted from within the Bureau. He transferred Zhou Hongshu, a former Model Artillery Regiment commander from the 14th Group Army, to serve as director, and transferred Chen Denglu from the 31st Group Army to serve as deputy director, allowing the two to check and balance each other. Within the military, Xi Jinping launched round after round of anti-corruption campaigns, not only investigating former vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, but also prosecuting hundreds of officers at the rank of Major General and above. He then carried out targeted military reforms, dismantling the military's 4 general headquarters into 15 functional departments, reorganising the 7 military regions into 5 theatre commands, and separating training authority from troop deployment authority. To further weaken the power of the General Staff, he specifically established a Joint Operations Command Centre and personally served as its Commander-in-Chief. He also launched a political rectification campaign ahead of conflict scenarios, continuously indoctrinating all officers and soldiers and strengthening the implementation of the Chairman of the Central Military Commission responsibility system at the level of the Beijing Garrison Command. It was not until around the end of 2013 that Xi Jinping obtained personnel authority. Xi adopted the approach of alternating commanders from the Zhang Youxia faction and officers originating from the 31st Group Army. Each commander's term was kept short to prevent them from building their own power base, and each was paired with a political commissar from a different faction to serve as a check. For example, from 2013 to 2016, Pan Liangxi from the Zhang Youxia faction served as garrison commander, while Jiang Yong from the 31st Group Army served as political commissar. From 2016 to 2020, Wang Chunning from the Nanjing military region served as commander, while Zhang Fandi from the Jinan military region served as political commissar. From 2020 to 2025, Fu Wenhua, a core subordinate of Zhang Youxia, served as commander, and starting in June 2024, Zhu Jun from the Air Force served as political commissar. By alternately using commanders from different factions, Xi Jinping ensured stability within the Beijing Garrison Command. At this point, Beijing also gained an additional armed force, namely the Beijing Armed Police Corps. This internal security force has 3 divisions and 2 directly subordinate detachments. In peacetime, it is mainly responsible for security for major meetings and counter-terrorism and stability maintenance. In emergencies, it can also serve as an armed force to maintain the regime. In the past, there were rumours that Zhou Yongkang had attempted a coup because the Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission could legally mobilise the armed police. Xi Jinping could not tolerate anyone having independent command over armed forces. Starting in 2018, the armed police came under unified leadership of the Central Military Commission. Neither the government system nor the Political and Legal Affairs Commission could directly command them anymore. The 2 most recent commanders of the armed police, Wang Ning and Wang Chuning, both came from the Nanjing military region. The current political commissar, Zhang Hongbing, also comes from the Nanjing military region and is a member of Xi Jinping's Minjiang New Army. At the 20th Party Congress, Xi Jinping's power within the party reached its peak. Not only did he achieve near total uniformity at the Politburo and Standing Committee levels, but he also occupied all key positions, transforming the Communist Party into a highly efficient power machine. Xi Jinping thus became the unquestioned new generation core leader within the CCP, possessing stable power. This constitutes the foundation of the legitimacy of Xi Jinping's authority. Recently, many self-media Big V influencers have been hyping the claim that Zhang Youxia has already successfully launched a coup, that Xi Jinping has lost control of the military, and that party elders and the Youth League faction are about to join forces with Zhang Youxia to return to the stage and force Xi Jinping to step down by various means. So let us use the framework established earlier to analyse how far Zhang Youxia really is from a successful palace coup. At the level of the Central Guard Bureau, although Zhou Hongshu also comes from the 14th Group Army, back then he and Zhang Youxia were in different divisions and at vastly different ranks, and did not even know each other. Moreover, there is also a deputy director in the Guard Bureau from the 31st Group Army. The Guard Bureau's direct line leader is Xi Jinping's hardcore ally, Kai Chi. Xi Jinping's bodyguards report directly to Kai Chi. Zhang Youxia simply cannot control the Guard Bureau. On the contrary, Zhang Yuxia's own security detail is dispatched by the Ministry of Public Security's Special Service Bureau and is directly commanded by Xi Jinping's loyalist, Wang Xiaohong. They both protect Zhang and monitor him. If Zhang were to engage in any improper actions, the security personnel would likely report him at the first opportunity or even arrest him directly. At the level of the Beijing Garrison Command, Zhang Yuxia's core subordinate Fu Wenhua has already been transferred away. The current political commissar comes from the Air Force and is a subordinate of Xu Qiliang. Moreover, the party secretary of the Beijing Garrison Command is held by Xi Jinping's trusted aide Yin Li. All actions must receive the approval of both the political commissar and the party secretary. Therefore, the Garrison Command is also impossible for Zhang Youxia to control. At the level of the armed police, Zhang Youxia has even less of a say. Several army units are also stationed around Beijing and fall under the command of the Central Theatre Command. These forces are politically absolutely reliable, and if anything were to happen, they could reach Beijing's urban area within 2 to 3 hours. At the level of the Central Military Commission, if you truly understand the military reforms, you will know that their direct purpose was to weaken the 4 general headquarters and the 2 vice chairmen, concentrating all power in the hands of the CMC chairman and implementing the chairman responsibility system that is Xi Jinping alone has the final say. Today's vice chairmen are no longer like Guo Boxiong or Xu Kaihu, who could sideline the chairman. Beneath them are 15 functional departments responsible for concrete operations. What the vice chairman can do is merely serve as transmission belts linking top and bottom. Beyond routine training, troop mobilisation and armed deployments require written orders jointly issued by the CMC and theatre commands. Verbal orders are invalid. All unit commanders must sign to confirm, with approvals at every level. The approval hub of the CMC is now the Joint Operations Command Centre system. Xi Jinping is the commander-in-chief of this system. Without Xi Jinping's signature, it is extremely difficult for Vice Chairman Zhang to mobilise even a single soldier. Moreover, even if troops were somehow mobilized, because weapons, fuel, and other equipment are stored separately without complete documentation. Not even one vehicle, one drop of fuel, or one bullet can be taken out. With what would you carry out a coup? Have the soldiers run to stage a coup on foot? After the establishment of the National Security Commission, Xi Jinping built a powerful intelligence system. The intelligence systems of the Ministry of State Security and the military operate under unified coordination within this structure and report directly to Xi Jinping. All intelligence related to regime security is delivered directly to Xi Jinping at the first moment. Any unusual movement by Zhang Youxia and his associates would likely be reported to Xi Jinping by the intelligence system very quickly. Within the Communist Party, there is no longer any group capable of challenging Xi Jinping. One could even say that Xi Jinping has become a lofty cult leader, unifying the entire realm. All current factions exist beneath Xi Jinping's overarching power. Through anti-corruption campaigns, Xi Jinping has obtained extensive corruption evidence against the families of former Standing Committee members, and he has also issued numerous regulations restricting retired Standing Committee members from colluding with each other or engaging in reckless commentary. As a result, the elder factions at the centre dare not express their opinions. With Hu Jintao being escorted out of the party congress, Jiang Zemin's death, and many former Standing Committee members suffering from serious illnesses, elders capable of threatening Xi Jinping no longer exist. The so-called Youth League faction has long since ceased to exist. Some are in prison, some are already in heaven, and some remain at home trembling in fear. Hu Chunhua's overseas visits are merely routine duties of a vice chairman of the CPPCC and are not any kind of comeback. Wang Yang has long since been reprimanded by Xi Jinping. If you say he's going to become General Secretary, he himself would probably wet his pants from fear. Hu Jintao's dementia has become very severe. He often cannot recognize people anymore. Wen Jiabao has a pile of evidence in Xi Jinping's hands. If he were not obedient, he could be taken down at any time. Moreover, Wen and Xi are themselves allies. As for Zhang Youxia, he has never had much rapport with officials in the party and government systems. Tying one's life together to risk losing one's head requires a great deal of trust. Without sufficient intra-party alliances, a purely military figure finds it extremely difficult to launch a coup. Hu Guofeng overthrew the Gang of Four because he himself was the party leader. Deng Xiaoping overthrew Hu Guofeng because the power of the old cadres within the party had long surpassed that of the whateverist faction. Jiang Zemin was able to rule behind the curtain with the military because he himself was the party boss, and the Communist Party still listened to him. So how should we view the continuous downfall of Xi Jinping's confidants, such as He Weidong and Miao Hua? Does this not prove that Xi Jinping's power is being continuously weakened by Zhang Youxia? I analysed this in a previous video. The downfall of He Weidong and Miao Hua was the result of Xi Jinping, at Zhang Yuxia's instigation, proactively cleaning house. Just as with the earlier purge of the Rocket Force and other subordinates of Zhang Youxia, the person who made the final decision was Xi Jinping, and the people who carried out the investigations were also Xi Jinping's people. Put simply, one group of Xi Jinping's own followers beat another group of Xi Jinping's followers. This precisely demonstrates that Xi Jinping holds absolute power. A vice chairman of the CMC or even a CMC member can be taken down at his command. Some people say that Zhang Youxia turned his back on Xi Jinping during a meeting break and ignored him. This kind of political analysis based on glances, eyes, and eyebrows is utterly ridiculous. Politics is not dating. You cannot derive conclusions by analysing a single look or posture. A photographer's lens captures only one moment from one angle and cannot show the full context. Perhaps Vice Chairman Zhang was simply thinking about which beautiful woman to admire at that moment. What should be focused on is, if Zhang Youxia had already succeeded in launching a coup, why has he not replaced personnel in the General Office and other core systems? Why has he not replaced people in the Central Propaganda Department, key media outlets, or the Cyberspace Administration? Why has he not replaced the leaders of key provinces and cities? If the goal were not regime power, what would be the meaning of such a coup? A coup is meant to change the regime in order to obtain benefits. Even from the perspective of consolidating coup results, if Kai Chi and Yin Li were not quickly removed, would it not be easy for them to launch a counterattack? After all, they still control the Guard Bureau and the Garrison Command, and yet you still allow Xi Jinping to travel everywhere and speak publicly everywhere. Are you not worried that he might suddenly issue a statement denouncing the coup and calling on others to remove the traitors from the ruler's side. Some people cherry-pick from military media, claiming that a certain meeting did not mention the chairman responsibility system or Xi Jinping, that another meeting heavily emphasized democratic centralism, or that a certain memorial hall removed Xi Zongxun's name. What they do not know is that the CCP has indeed consciously corrected excessive personality cult propaganda internally, believing that it damages Xi Jinping's image, and therefore proactively reduced direct personal worship messaging. But if you understand even a little about politics, you will know that in official media, the party equals Xi Jinping. As long as the party's leadership is being promoted, Xi Jinping is being promoted. Moreover, the Communist Party is the greatest master of lying in history. You should watch what it does, not what it says. Interpreting media content in a one-sided, wishful manner is either stupidity or malice. Of course, Xi Jinping is not without vulnerabilities. His greatest risk is health. Before the laws of nature, there is no distinction between ordinary people and leaders. This is currently the most likely factor that could remove him from power. After all, he is nearly 80 years old. Although his parents had longevity genes and central healthcare conditions are excellent, he has nonetheless entered the final countdown of life. His second vulnerability is the weakening economy. Economic decline can inflame public resentment and deprive the CCP of sufficient financial resources to maintain social stability and its base of support, thereby undermining governing legitimacy. However, this economic downturn would need a very long accumulation process to reach a critical point and will not threaten his rule in the short term. His third vulnerability is the authoritarian mindset. This mindset easily leads to erroneous judgments, such as in pandemic-era decision-making, and becomes more pronounced with age. Among these, certain major miscalculations, such as a failed Taiwan Strait War, could potentially lead to his downfall. So now, how far do you think Zhang Youxia is from launching a successful coup? The correct answer is infinitely far away. What do you think? Thank you all for watching.